Hello again. We are live in the Mentoring for Translators Facebook group on the YouTube channel and my Facebook public page. Welcome to another Ask Your Mentor Anything live. And we have together again Ellen Singer. You know Ellen, she was previously again with us, and also is a very active member in many Facebook groups and also a conference speaker and many forums. So welcome Ellen. Thank you for accepting my invitation once again. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we have a great topic that I got so many messages about it. Like they told me they were looking for such a topic online, and then we promoted the event and they said, okay, that is the right timing. So guys, if you have any questions for our today's topic, or Ellen specifically, the business side of translation or our topic, please use the comments below this video and we will see them and answer them during the live. We will try to address all of your questions. And if you come up with any more questions during the live, we would be happily to answer. In the meantime, let us know. Can you hear us well? Is the sound okay? Is the picture okay? And where are you watching us from? I would love to know. Since we have like almost 300 new members in the group, before we start with our topic, I would love to introduce you very shortly this initiative. We started last January, so we are closing 1 year this month. We just closed 1 year. And we're broadcasting live almost every Friday in the group, covering different topics with other fellow translators, linguists, interpreters from all over the world. And mostly the topics are related to the business side of our profession, productivity, issues that we deal, other than the actual translation part. So if you have any topics that you would really like to cover, and if you have any speaker guests that you would like me to invite, please use the form that it exists in the description box of this live. And include the name of the speaker or the topic that you would like us to cover. Hello, Dorota. She says hello from Poland. Yes, I can hear and see you well. Great. So there is a bit of delay, but thank you for joining us. So this is about business side of translation, productivity, tech issues. And if you have any more ideas that you would like to cover, let us know. We're broadcasting every Friday, and maybe we can come up with more ideas. So Ellen is a very well-known person in our profession. If you haven't heard the name of Ellen, maybe you could look on Google, since it's our topic today. Ellen, you would like to say a few words. Why did you choose the topic?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm Ellen. I've been in this business for 25 years. For those who don't know me, I started out on machines before we even had what is now called the internet, when we still was only universities settled. I love computers. I hate all the algorithms people are putting on it, because I see them all as making it more difficult instead of easier, but because it's for people who don't use computers much, it seems to be useful to many. That's at least my opinion. And why I believe that we can all increase our productivity and our quality by knowing how to search, because we are hampered by the algorithms that Google or other search engines impose on us. Google is the worst, but it's also the one that has the most users, which also means it has the most usability. But on the other hand, it's quite irritating that they actually do not allow us to influence it. There are ways to go around the algorithms. There are ways to do searches that will make it easier and better. And on the other hand, you have to know them. Lots of people do not make use. I've heard of too many people who don't know how to search. They ask for a word or a term in the groups. And if they would know how to use it, they don't have to ask for help every time. They can actually just do it themselves, because very often it's a 1-minute search, and it's such a pity. You are wasting time, you're wasting your colleagues' time. It's not necessary. So I believe in sharing knowledge that will help you move further and need less help. That's what I like doing. So very often I don't only give you the answer when people do ask things, but I also explain what I did so that they could copy it next time. For me, that is a no-brainer. If we all know how to do things better, it's easier for all of us. So that's basically why I do this topic.
Yeah, but I really loved when, as soon as you suggested some topics, I really loved this one because I think, I don't know if you've seen that in your career, but I've been asked by several clients of mine if I know actually to search online. So I think some recruiters or LSPs owners, they really look for such a, can we call it, I don't know, soft skill or hard skill, to know how to search online. So there are including some requirements for a job, especially when it's a terminology-based building. And I used to consider myself really good at this, and actually I had really good results when we built, for example, a terminology base for financial terms. But I really love to know more because I'm doing it, how we say, on my own. I've never been trained on that. So I would love to know more in a structured way, the way that you're going to do this together with us. Elena says, nice to see you too, Elena, from Italy. So, Ellen, the stage is yours.
Okay, I'll just say a few things. You can do your searches in Google with words or words and operators, with word-based image searches, and you can do it with word combination-based searches, so reference website. So those are the four main the four main things I would like to talk about. First of all, what is an operator? Because, of course, we know an operator as being someone who operates a forklift truck. We're not talking about those. Can you put the screen on, Virginia? Because that's what I'm going to do now. You can either use the advanced search, but then you have boxes to fiddle with. I absolutely, totally hate forms because I have to look them up. Another option is just use it in your Google search, and then you can use the operators, which are on the left-hand side of the slide. And that is things like I can say site, and I can tell it to look at only sites with co-UK, which means that it'll look only in Britain, not American, not in Holland, in English, or anything else. Of course, the algorithms are now such that they still want you to do it, and they have put a lot of co-UK things into things that are not in English, so you still sometimes need to set it for the language itself. You can use the and signs. What does an and sign do? If you say, I want to look for word A, and you put the and sign and word B, it will only look for both words. I don't know how irritated you get, but when I put 5 words in, it tells me, oh, here are the hits, and we forgot about this word, and we forgot about that word. Want to avoid that? Put the and sign in between them, and it'll all come out. And it will ignore the sites that don't have all those words in it. So then you're making sure you get the next filter level without having to go through it. So if I'm looking for a car part, I can put car and whatever. And if the word car is not also on the website, it won't appear. Nowadays, I am very, very angry with the whole algorithm. They want us to go to Instagram. I hate it. Don't force me to go anywhere. So I put minus Instagram. If I put minus Instagram, it doesn't show me the Instagram hits. I got rid of all of them in one go.
And I don't have to. Really helpful for Pinterest, for example, when you search
Pinterest, Instagram. It doesn't matter which one.
Exactly.
Whatever you don't want to have. Sometimes you have dictionaries that keep on popping up because they've paid to be up. But they're absolutely worthless. They're actually stupid dictionaries. But they're paid, so they're always up there. And then everyone thinks they're useful. Just put minus or block the site, or you put minus and you then don't have them. You can use placeholders, which is an asterisk. You can use at Twitter or at whatever if you want to find out more about a certain company or a certain something or a hashtag. You can put all of those. And you can also use or. This word or that word, and then it doesn't have to look for both. Sometimes that's useful, usually it isn't. If you don't like using all these operators because you can't remember them all, I mean, if I do site code UK, it works perfectly, but if I do something else, it might not. If you don't like that, then use the advanced search option. if you can't see it, it used to be very easy to click on the advanced search on the search window. Nowadays, they hide it. It's somewhere at the bottom and it's hidden. Just Google advanced search, Google, and you'll get it in one go. And it will be easy to fill in the form instead of using all the operators. The other day, for me, it was really funny because just 2 days ago, we had a discussion in a group, in a Dutch group. That Dutch group, someone said, I am looking for parking, but only in French. So the word parking, as it is used in French, but not just in France.
In a French context.
Yes.
Okay.
In the French language. But not only just France, and all the world over. So I told her, go look here in the advanced search. Then I went to the advanced search and put the language on French. And immediately I only had French things because she had tried with .fr, but then she also had to do Canada and a few other countries. And it was becoming very, very
complicated,
hard to filter it. And I said, well, all you have to do is set your advanced search into French only. And then Bob's your uncle. And so she was totally surprised that this worked so quickly. I just sent her the link. It took me 2 seconds, and she was really happy. And I think it's very important to know about these things because sometimes you just need them.
Can you repeat the example you mentioned? Like what did the lady
in this case, it was parking, but only in French.
Yeah. I mean, what was the solution in it?
Oh, the advanced search. I just put. I went to the advanced search option for Google. I put the parking in the word part, and I put French language. You can, as you can see, the first one here, to narrow your results, is language, and you can put French.
Amazing.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's so simple.
And then you don't have all the other stuff that is in the way.
It's so simple, and we don't use it. The word operator that you use is the official term that we use.
Yes.
And what is the connection with Boolean? Do you know the Boolean sets on LinkedIn?
Boolean? No, I don't, because I don't know LinkedIn. I don't really like it because they want you to pay. I am against most media. I have a free one. And they keep on telling me every single day, you can do a free course. You can come and do this for a month free. And then you have to pay. Well, no, that's not me.
What I'm teaching on LinkedIn is both for the free version and the paid version. So you can totally implement what I'm telling in the free version. But it looks like what you're telling us here a bit with the Boolean set method, where you can actually exclude some terms or you can actually narrow down the results that you want. So okay, so let's continue.
20 years ago, I was translating software that made sure that you had lists of terminology that you did want and didn't want in text you were writing. It was software specifically for writing. So if you wrote one of the wrong ones, it would tell you, don't, etc. And it's the same principle. It's all the same principle. It's not as if they're brilliant new ideas. This has been around for 20 years. So it's basically the same idea. Shall we just stop sharing this one?
Yep.
Years ago, I had a colleague. She works for us, and she was looking for a specific term for a traffic light, but not just any traffic light, only one that went up from one side over the road, but didn't go down again. And because I knew she had done all the logical searches, she had spent an hour on it and hadn't found the term. I didn't do what was logical. I just went and looked for all sorts of images of traffic lights. And every time it was the right one, I would click on it and see if there was a term. After about 5 clicks, I had a term, and then I looked for that term, and I had it. So within 5 or 10 minutes, I had found the term that had taken her an hour to look for. And she was angry with herself because she said, what happened? I said, well, I normally would have done the whole hour first myself, but I know you know how to do that. So I went to where I wouldn't go normally, only as a last resort, and it worked. And sometimes you can just do that. You can go, if you want to know a term of a of a machine, a specific sort of machine, you put the machine in, and then you start looking for pages to see if there are part lists or whatever. That's also an option. That's what you can do with image searches. I recently had to do a whole course on flanges for flange installers and flange people. So people who only work with flanges, so you can't call them just a flange, you have to specify each sort. And in Dutch, we had something called a steekflens, and it looks like a bedpan. So that's why it's called steak, because a steak, something is the bedpan in the old days when you were bedridden and you had to go to the toilet. So I was looking for something like that, and I couldn't find it. So in the end, what I did was I just went on, and because the Lingua options and the other options everywhere online, they were all sort of other things. But if you then look for that in the images, you don't find one with a handle, and I wanted one with a handle. So you had to, it told me it was a blind flange, it told me it was a blanking flange, it told me it was a flange, a connecting flange, but in this case, I couldn't use that. I had to use a specific term. So I did all sorts of different flange searches until I found them. And it turned out being not the connecting flange, because that was wrong again, but something called a spade. So who would go from bedpan flange to think it's called a spade? It's called a spade or a ring spacer. Fine. But I wouldn't have found that without image searches.
Image searches. So you mentioned before that you were going to cover 4 elements.
Yes, we're in 3 now.
Okay, the first one was operators. The second one was...
Wait, the first one was just words.
Okay.
Just words.
And the third
words
one
and
is...
operators. And then you have the word-based image search. And the last one is the word combination-based search.
Okay, because I like to sum up and people also to follow us. So we've already covered what are the operators and how to use them in order to find a specific term for a specific language or a location, so on. The second element that already Ellen mentioned and covered is the simple words search. The third one about how to combine images, searches, and to find better results. And now we are in the word combination you mentioned.
Yes. Sometimes you have a problem. And you want to find things like, for example, car parts and screws. And then or screws or whatever, but then you use that word first, and then use other words to find what it is, to limit it. Because if you just use the second term only, you will get a lot of other hits that you don't want. So you can use the image search to combine it with that. But what I very often do when it's a topic I'm not 100% up to date in or 100% sure of, or it's a very, very small niche thing that you don't have specialized translators in. I'm a technical translator. Exactly. I very often first start by going to websites talking about the subject. By putting 2, 3, 4 terms. I go there, I read everything about it, I know what it does. And then I try and find a similar website in the other language, read that. And after I've done both, they don't have to be the same page. They don't have to be a translation of each other. They just have to give me information on what it is. If a whole translation is about this one little part in this one little car and this one little thingy, I need to know what does it do and how does it work? Because if not, I can't translate it.
Yeah, I don't know if you agree, Ellen, but most of us, we make this mistake. We start with the bilingual search instead of going to one language search, which gives us a lot more results. When we're
I think that lately, 2 or 3 quarters of what I find online bilingual is wrong. Just like I showed with the flange, everything was calling it a flange and a blank flange and a this flange and a that flange when it's not even called a bloody flange. It is a flange, but it's not called a flange.
It was a bad translation, you mean? So they
were all bad translations. They should have been called spades.
Okay.
Or a spade, ring spacer, but not a flange or any version of a flange. It took me a while to find that, but I found it. And because I was translating a PowerPoint specifically to give a course on flanges, you can't have a generic word for it. You have to specify each and every flange. So for that translation, I learned 20, 30 different types of flanges.
Amazing.
Normally, you don't need that. But you have to be able to narrow it down with good searches to know that you're using the right one. And only when you put the right term in and half the images give you exactly what you wanted, that is when you can stop.
For me, in technical translations, it really helps. I don't know if it's the same with other niches, for example. I know for medical and technical translations, really, the images really help, okay? As long as you find good examples and good translations and good sources, reliable sources. Hello, Kenneth. I see some people, they send me messages that they don't see us live. So you need to refresh your page. If you see the reminder that we are going live, maybe you need to refresh your page so as to show you that we are live, because we are already with Ellen live 20 minutes. So as Kenneth had this problem, please refresh your page if you're still seeing the same message so as to show up, okay, the actual live. So welcome, Kenneth, as well. If you have any questions, we would love to address them. So Ellen, you were about to add something, or we can continue with some specific.
No, go. You just said something which was my next idea to talk about, and that's the weight of your reference material.
Okay.
If you have the Urlex and it tells you it's the right term, it's the right term. If it's a specific, I very often use the example of the train dictionary. There's a train dictionary for 5 languages, European languages. Even if it's called a switch in English, and it's not a switch, it's still a bloody switch. And you have to remember that. It's whatever the first people called it and it started to become used, that's what you're using. There are a lot of terms that don't make sense. They're called switches and they're not. They're called whatever and they're not. That doesn't mean that that is not the term every single engineer or whatever is going to be aware of. So we don't have to tell them, it's not a switch, it just is. But you have to have weighted reference material to make this assumption. So Urlex works, Wikipedia works, specific dictionary works.
Can I show the slide? Can I show the slide? Okay.
Sure, yes. I have slides for this because I have already used it before, but I made it for...
So those are, as we can say, reliable...
The left is reliable, but blogs don't have to be reliable. Unknown entities don't have to be reliable. Lingua doesn't have to be reliable. Lingua is just a compilation of bilingual websites and stuff and translations. So it has a lot of very useful things, but you have to check whether it's actually used. As I said before, in Lingua, the 5 translations for the flange all had the word flange in it when it shouldn't have.
The Eurodicotom, you have it in the Urlex? Eurodicotom.
Sorry? Urlex is more for legal things, but
yeah,
yes,
I know, but I don't see Eurodicotom because if we do financial or legal or EU text, Eurodicotom is really.
I didn't want to put all of them. I was just making an example of a few sites that are okay.
Yeah, even though it's an EU instrument, it's not always 100% reliable sometimes.
No,
so you
nothing is.
And double check, even though they are EU instruments like Europe and so on. So you need to double check the results anytime.
But lots of people don't know about, don't look up things. So, for example, in English, it's the machinery directive. In Dutch, it's 5 words.
Okay.
But lots of people then call it the machine directive in Dutch. That's wrong. You have to use the whole thing, etc. I don't know if it still is that because I haven't done much with that yet lately, but it happens. And sometimes they change it and they decide that they will call it differently next time. And then you have to know about this. You have to know what is used today, not what was used 5 years ago and is still in your memory. You have to double check that the directives still exist, that the directives are still there, and what they are called. And sometimes you have it in certain languages, it is 10 words, and it's only 1 in another. So you have to look this up. And you have to look up all sorts of entities all the time. I'll give another example of a change that we have found. 25 years ago, we had everything was project oriented in England, and in America, and project orientated in England. I don't know if it was to avoid this difference between the two, but nowadays it's project focused. You have to know this. You have to, even if your old memories give you oriented or orientated, you nowadays use focused. And you have a lot of such terms. So make sure to do your searches, even if you think you know the terms. It's one of the things that lots of people don't do. 20 years ago, it was this, so now I still use that. No, you have to check because things do change.
I really love those small tips that you add at the end, and if we can sum up all of them in the end, because I think those are really useful, and we tend to neglect, for example, the fact that you mentioned earlier, in one language search instead of bilingual search of a term, and also now that you mentioned this one, so if you have more of these, we can sum up before we end this slide, so people to make notes.
You do that. I'll forget to do them. I don't think they're.
Okay. So
I forget.
Okay, I will write down.
I just talk. I'm sorry.
I need to write down then. So one was not the bilingual. Okay, sets.
Sometimes just read the because that has been written actually in that language. The other one is a translation. A translation isn't always visible as a translation, but it does influence the translation. So if you have something written, I once did a translation and I needed a term for a horse fence, a specific horse fence. I didn't know anything about it, so I Googled, couldn't come out, couldn't find what I needed. I called the guy. I called the guy who built horse fences. And I just, called him and said, listen, I need this term, and it has to have 3 layers, not 2 or whatever. And he said, oh, that's called that. I said, okay, thank you. And then I Googled it, and it was right. But I hadn't found it myself. And sometimes that's a good tip too. Just call people. Everyone loves talking about their business.
I think that's the that you can give, and it was one advice we were given when I was a student at the university from our professors. What is the best tool for a translator is their agenda of people they know in specific industries and professions. So if you have a medical term, ask your doctor or the friend that is a doctor. Or if you have a tech term or a legal term, ask the lawyer that you know in your agenda. So that's a great advice. So I'm writing down also this one.
I have my reviewer for Spanish. She always tells me, oh, I'm not sure about this term. I'm checking it out with my building guy, or I'm checking it out with I'm checking it out with this and that. And I love the fact that she has always got friends that do something that is related to that term, and she finds it out. And she says, oh.
You can find, if you don't have any friend, you can ask for such an acquaintance.
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do this. Another thing I wanted to talk about is typos. Google has decided for us that we are bad typists. We are extremely bad typists. When I write this word, which is a village in Hungary, if I write this in Google, it'll give me not this, but Salford. See? Because Salford is a bigger community in England. So it decides that I made a typo, that I didn't mean the O with the umlaut on top, that I didn't mean the L, but typed that wrong. It should have been an R. And I want to know everything about a village in England, which is, of course, ridiculous. But that's because of search frequency. So more people look up Salford than Shalford. So because of that, Google thinks you made a mistake. It's the most irritating part of the Google searches nowadays for me, that every time I write an actual term and I tell it what to look for, it tells me, oh, you didn't mean that. You're wrong. You didn't mean that. You don't know what you're looking for. I do. Well, they don't. So I have to tell it, listen, I wanted to give me that.
So we have a comment
just
from
adding a point to the thing about searching after specific little notes. There's a lot of good terminology to make a note for later use on the way towards the right term. So don't rush through it unless you're in a hurry. I totally agree, Kenneth. I totally agree. Make time to search your stuff. I've done 100 types of roof tiles. I've done 100 types of plinths. You didn't even know they existed. And you can't always trust the doctor, the lawyer, or whatever. But if you ask 2 or 3, you will get the right results.
Of course.
So always check the names. That's something I always say. Check your names. Use Google to check names. Every single company writes their own company name wrong, writes their own employees' names wrong, writes the wrong titles for people working in the thing. They sort of know, oh, they're from that department. I'll give them a title in the source text. And if you could then go to LinkedIn, you'll find that their title is not something, but it's completely something else. And it should reflect each other, because that has been implemented by the person themselves. If I call myself a gobbledygook maker, that's what I should be called, and not a translator. Of course, I'm not a gobbledygook maker. I am a translator. But, if I am calling myself whatever I am calling myself, that's what should be in the document. Add your names to the term base. They will be coming up, and then you don't make mistakes when you're putting them in there. And I once had 3 people at the office looking what I was doing, and I was trying to explain to them, look up the names. So we looked up 3 names, and 2 out of 3 were wrong. If I then look up 3 names and all 3 are right, of course, they don't learn what I'm trying to tell them. They think it's useless. But if they actually see that 2 of the 3 names in a document from a company are wrong, they start understanding why I want them to Google it.
And what is the best way to find the reliable one? What is the best way to distinguish?
To what? Sorry.
To find the one that is good enough to distinguish which is the wrong with the
usually right. That's what I use LinkedIn for. That's why I also have an account, and that's why I'm planning someday to do more with my account, but I haven't yet. But I will soon, I hope, if I have the time. But if you say you are a translator, fine. I call myself the hugging translator, right? So my profile says I'm the hugging translator.
Mm-hmm.
So if you Google me and it says I am the embracing translator in the source text, you have to change that into the hugging translator. Yes? Do you understand what I'm saying? So even though it's a synonym, if that's not what you call yourself, that's not what's right. Lots of names are wrong. You have a lot of names that are that have the double S, the single S, the whatever, or just special diacritics on them. Look them up, because very often in the source text they have removed all the diacritics, and you want them in there, your translation, because you want to be correct and not mess about like the author did. Authors mess about a lot. It's a pity, but they do. They repeat themselves. They make a mess of their original text.
That's usually what it really helps is to ask your client for reliable sources that you should look for. So they take that on their own, or you write down the sources that you found, the terms, if you of course think that those sources are reliable, and you have them as reference to your client whenever something comes up, which we are humans, especially about names and titles of people. You can find several of them online, so you can write down the most reliable resource that you think of, and then you can have proof to your client, like I found there. But unless they have told you beforehand that you need to, for example, use this specific resource.
Yep, so that's fine. But what I also do is what you say, writing down, that's great, but I will have forgotten where I wrote it down. And yes, I can have it in reference, but then as I get more projects from the same client, I might forget I have been building this. So what I do is I write that in the comments file in my CAT tool. I put the link to the LinkedIn address, or I put the LinkedIn to whatever, and it's up to them to change it in the source or not.
Of course.
But I explain why I use this in the translation.
Definitely.
And more often than not,
more
often than not, they change the source. Very often they change the source. But that's up to them. That's not my problem.
Yeah. And also about the client, you can do it on Katsu, as Ellen says. If you can have a file for the client, I have an online doc that I have all the resources per project. So it depends on you and your organization, productivity tool, if you use any project management tool. So it's up to you where you're
whatever works for you. For me, it works this way, because then I am sure I'm telling the customer, because with every single project, I send them the bilingual file.
Even to direct clients?
The direct clients, everyone.
No,
why? They can see it in context. In the old days, what I did was I wrote, this is what you had. This was what I think it should be. That's why my translation is this. But that takes a lot of time. and
Exactly.
effort. Every time after a big project, I was, half an hour, three-quarters of an hour, putting all these in a way that they would understand. Then they would come back. And where is that? In which file? Where is it? And then I'd have to explain it again, which I had already done. The other day I had it. I sent them the bilingual. It's all there. And I said, there are 2 comments in the file. Please look at them because I think they're mistakes in your source text. You only have 2 because you've done a good job. And she says, oh, I only saw 1. I said, oh, so I copy and paste the 2 little bits from the bilingual back into the message and I send it back because there are, you want to be nice, but you don't want to waste time all the time doing this. So I send the bilingual and then it's up to them to sort it out, not me. I told them your source stinks. You want to do something about it? Fine, do it.
You know why? Yeah, why I love those lives that we do, because we all of us deal with similar problems, and it's really nice to hear that from another colleague from another country that works in different country, different industry with different clients. But we all of us somehow we have dealt or we will deal with such issues.
Oh yes, we will.
It's really, really helpful what you've been sharing with us, Ellen, because it's something really practical that we might see in our profession.
I'm going to see the next slide because I can't remember what comes next.
Let's go.
Why doesn't it do anything?
We have more or less 20 minutes, so if you can include the most important.
This will be a quick one, a very quick one. Okay. Different languages for Niger. In Dutch, you would expect that the Dutch Republiek Niger would be the Republic of Niger, but it is of the Niger. Even though then in Portuguese it doesn't have the, but it does in English. So you have to look them up. You can't just let them go. I don't know the official name of a country I'm not totally familiar with, so I look them up. And Wikipedia is a good way of doing this. Mm-hmm. Google yourself once in a while for the fun of it. And if you need to, narrow it down. If you have a very specific name like Virginia's, it'll be probably only her. There are 3 other Ellen singers in the world that are pretty much on the internet.
Yeah, I'm like
so I have to narrow it down. If I do just my name, I get lots of other people in it, as you can see. But if I Google myself and put translator, I mainly get me.
Interesting.
So this is the difference between, and as you see, I put the inverted quotes there, the quotes on the top. I don't want all the Ellens because if not, I get, of course, a lot of the Ellen who has this series on the TV. I don't want her. I don't want anyone else. I want all the Ellen singers. But there is a veterinarian in the US and there are other people. Some of them are actually their real names. Some are pen names. I don't care. But I don't want this to come up. I want this to come up. So the way to show how to do it is I do the quoted Ellen singer and I put translator. And just like that, most of them are mine. I mean, this one here isn't the one with that is from I think the veterinarian. And then we have one picture of Alessandra because I am part of All Round Translators. And then at the 3rd line, it starts moving further along.
And can I mention something? If I do the same research for my own Google, based in Greece, for example, having different cookies of yours might most probably have different results, similar, yes, but different. So it always plays a role where you are located, what are the cookies, what is the history of your searches, the location, and so on. So definitely helps.
And other people's searches, not just your searches, also other people's searches. Yeah. They influence your results as well. So anyway, I had a fun thing last time with East Africa. I really like this fact. What is East Africa? Because I went to the East Africa conference, and it's really funny because here we have that it used to be 3 names, and then it was included some more countries, and then we go into here that it's 20 territories, and then you move to another language, and in Spanish it says it is 18 countries. So you have to be aware of these differences. So if your thing says that 20 countries of East Africa, you have to Google it and you actually have to translate it with the 18 countries. Or you have to make a note that it's different for the 2. You cannot just say the 20 countries because then they go to Wikipedia and they found out it's 18 and they think you made a mistake. It depends on the context of your translation, but use your brain. Not every single term can be put from A to B. You have to think of the context in which you're putting it. In this
I
case,
don't think Wikipedia is a reliable source or resource for our translation in general. And most of the times I get rejected if I support any of my findings based on Wikipedia.
I think it is an extremely reliable one. They have done research to see in how reliable Wikipedia is, and they compared it to the reliability of the Encyclopedia Britannica in the old days. It's more reliable than the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Maybe it has to do with also the language combination. Maybe because here in Greece it's not accepted as a reliable source.
Some connections are wrong. Sometimes when you go from one language to the other, you get in the wrong page because someone made the link and no one realized that it was wrong. But of course, you have to, as always, use your brain. Your main asset as a translator is your own brain. Use it always. So in this case, what I'm saying is the term in Spanish and in English is completely different. And if I then go to Portuguese, it will tell me that there is a different list of countries that is part of East Africa, which I think it's really interesting that there's everyone. So if you're talking about this and you're translating about this, if it's relevant, only if it's relevant, you make a little note and you tell the customer that it isn't the same in all the languages. My sister once was doing a translation and she went online and it was all about animals. And the author of the text had been a biology guy who knew everything about the animals. And he had used a specific name. And she was correcting it. And she changed all of them. And the guy said, this translator, this editor knows nothing. But my sister then answered back, said, oh, yes, but this. And then it turned out that 5 years before, they had changed the whole nomenclature for this. All the names for all the animals in the animal kingdom, they have decided on different names.
Yes, I remember. I remember that example. I've heard that from you again. I cannot recall.
Probably, but really, I think that's beautiful. A biologist didn't know that it had changed, and once he realized that my sister was right and not him, he was extremely happy with her. So sometimes telling them off actually makes them happy. And it is a way of getting yourself customers and keeping them.
And also we come back to the previous example that you need to keep your resources where you found those terms in order to use them in such examples that already Ellen mentioned. And regarding the countries that you mentioned, I would go to the United Nations website or a more reliable source so as to have
Everywhere there are mistakes. I remember 20 years ago, my neighbor had to look up the Independence Day of one of our older colonies. And there were 5 different dates in reliable sources online. So you always have to see if it's right. Then you can make a mistake. If it's, the second of the second of a month or the 22nd, someone might have forgotten to put the second too. Just check it if it exists in more than one website. If it exists in 50 or 300 or 5 million websites, then you're sure it's safe. I'll go to the next slide. If you're doing an idiom or a quote, don't be lazy, don't translate it. I saw this one not recently. Someone had translated this one. No matter how long a tree trunk is in the water, it will never turn into a crocodile. But the actual idiom is, no matter how long a log stays in the water, it doesn't become a crocodile. Look it up. So what I did, I Googled tree, water, crocodile, and just checked what the most usual string of words is, the whole phrase. You don't want to translate this, you want to have the real one. Same thing with Bible or any other quote. And then you stick to one Bible. For example, if you do the King James, you do the one King James, and all your quotes should come from that single Bible, not from anyone you find first. So those are, things that you have to think of. That's when you're checking things online. This is a funny one that a translator had. This animal in Dutch is called a letter setter, which translates nicely in English. But this is a normal letter setter. So the guy first thought that it was a mistake because it was all about beetles, but he was expecting it to be about a printing process. But it wasn't. It was about this little beetle that is called that. But it's all we call the letter setter in English. I mean in Dutch, not in English. So those things are things I always try to spot on the internet. And this is the guy who actually was doing that, and he did this in January. I try to keep track of these sort of little things on internet in the groups. This is what I love getting from Facebook groups. This is why I'm so active. This was another one, the OPA aluminium foil. Try Googling OPA aluminium foil and you will get a lot of grandparents, because OPA in Dutch means grandparent. You will not find any useful links. So what do you do if you want to know what that is in another language? What actually OPA stands for?
Advanced settings. Advanced settings with the language.
Well, I added, it was all about medication blister packs. It's a new aluminium foil that they put. So I added medication blister packs to the search. And then, whoops, I got oriented polyamide film. Or actually, biaxially oriented polyamide film. It's a nylon film that they use so that the medication doesn't get wet and loses its usefulness. So I found this, but I couldn't have found this just looking for OPA. I needed the medication blister packs, the context. The context is everything when you're searching. Without that, I would not have gotten anywhere. But then I found this. This was actually a search that Marek was doing for a job when he was staying with me. And so we discussed it and we tried to do our best. And then I needed context. And then we found the right context and we found it. But first, he had been searching himself. And we all have to go through this. Even the people who are very good at searching, we sometimes have to go a different route than we usually do.
And also, you know, when this is really, really, really helpful, when you actually have a term that has 3 or 4 different meanings, like financial terms, when you provide the context, you have more reliable results. So this is also very useful, not only for something that is very difficult to find, but also something that might have 5 or 4 different meanings in the same language. So definitely context will help you to narrow down the right one. So here you find the details of Ellen. So if you would like to continue the discussion, feel free to tag Ellen in the Mentoring for Translators group or contact Ellen in the means that you see here on the screen. So I will hide the slide, but you can definitely watch the recording and to find the details. So Ellen, thank you so much. We are on time to sum up for those that they came late. What you can actually find by watching the recording here, the 4 ways of searching or elements that Ellen suggests. So you can go back and watch the recording anytime. It will stay in the Mentoring for Translators Facebook group, my Facebook public page, and on my YouTube channel. So go back and watch the recording to find out 4 different ways, okay, to find out a specific term. Also, some great tips that Ellen shows behind the results, the examples that she provides. So Ellen showed us some great examples of how to look for a term. And additionally, we had some great tips and tricks. I have here some notes. I don't know if I cover everything. So for example, it's better to look for monolingual, like in specific language, a term instead of bilingual searches, to call people and have an agenda of people working in a specific industry when you want to have an additional advice or a more reliable, and always ask more than one person. And include the resources. Ellen suggests that you can include them in the capsules, so you can have in the file and you can share the bilingual file with your client. But in general, you can include it in the comments of your document, docx, or the file that you keep the project, or the productivity tool, project management tool that you use for your clients. Specific tips on how to look for typos, names, idioms,
idioms. Idiom, Virginia?
Yeah?
It's called an idiom, not an idiom. It's an idiom.
Okay. And slide with the reliable resources. It's really, really important because Ellen's distinguished the difference between reliable resources and some more. Of course, there are more than them. Okay, we actually mentioned some more of those. But you can watch the recording and find more about those tips and tricks. We would love to address your questions. So if you come up later with questions, you can tag Ellen, or if you watch the recording, you can contact Ellen directly or myself. And of course, you will see the details of the websites of Ellen, so you can contact Ellen directly if you have more things you would like to discuss on this topic. Ellen, thank you so much. Before we close, just to invite you to the free challenge, since I just posted and I have, I don't know, 200 sign-ups already. People are really, really interested, and I know Ellen doesn't love it, but I'm running a free challenge on LinkedIn for those that they would like to find how to actually become more visible and how actually to turn it into a lead generation machine. Even if the term has been saturated, I really mean it. So people, they have just implemented some small changes on their profile. They show many connection requests of idea clients, and their visibility, the number of people visiting their profiles, to increase every day. So if you're interested in doing that with me, we are going to do it February 8th for a week, 5 days, every day, together to implement some small changes, so to see results. And thank you, Ellen, once again. Today's topic I find really, really interesting. Google searches to do it the efficient way. Go back and watch the recording, and see you next Friday. Ellen, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I would just want to know if there are any questions, because there usually are. And if you have any questions,
was really interested, and I asked him directly if he has any questions, and he says that he really found it interesting, but not for the moment. So maybe they just wanted to find the ways of just implement it. But usually many members watch the recordings as well, so we will see in the group. I would love to see a discussion in the group. So if you have questions, Ellen is available. We love questions, and this is why we call it Ask Your Mentor, because we really want to address your questions. Ellen, there is a question in the group, but I don't know if you've seen it. There is a translator member in the group that they would like, there is not here in the comments.
Okay.
They would like to find out if a translation job they have been requested is a scam or not. And he has provided some details on the project. So if we could go and address that question, but definitely having just some parts of emails that you've been sent is really difficult for us to give you advice reliable if it is a scammer or not. But we will take a look at your messages in the group. And I don't know, Ellen, if you agree, but in general, if you have a feeling that this is a scam, most probably it is. What do you think, Ellen, in general?
I think it is. Very often it is. Look at what they want to do. On the other hand, you also have people that are reliable. I mean, imagine if you are in a completely different kind of culture and you're using your normal cultural way of doing things in an international setting. You will mess it up. Yeah. It will look like a scam, but it doesn't have to be. I'll give you a nice example. There was a group of about 30 people who love to invent languages for fun. They had their own group. And suddenly someone entered the group and said, "Hi guys, will any of you want to do work on inventing 2 different languages, completely, totally different ones, for a series for television?" So 9 out of 10 of the group thought it was a scam. One of them decided to work on it. 2, 3 others did too. And they applied for this. And one of them got the job. Okay. And you know what the job was? Mm-hmm. That was the job of inventing the 2 languages for Game of Thrones.
Wow. Amazing.
Since then, he is the language inventor for TV in US. He is asked to make 2 languages, the most different as possible, or whatever. And it wasn't a scam. It sounded like a scam. But the guy didn't know how to do this, saw this group, thought, oh, you know what, I'll join them and ask them there, because it seems to be a group of people who do this. So let's just find out if they want to do this. And yes, he asked the question there, and no one thought it was a real thing, because why would he enter the group to do this? But he was. And since then, his main job is doing this.
So in general,
he landed the job of his dreams.
So in general, your advice would be, so it's the name of this translator is Iksha El Salahi, so most probably it's an Arabian country.
I'll look it up in a moment in the group, but I'll address it directly. But so you don't know. So you can give them the benefit of that. I had a few weeks ago, I had someone say, oh, I want you to do a translation. Okay. Is this rate? Yeah. Okay. Within 5 minutes. Yes. And then she sent me, I had to do a non-disclosure thing. Okay. And then I had to do something else. And then she wanted me to do the first paragraph for free. And then I said, listen, either give me everything now or don't. But I don't feel like working this way. Give me all the conditions you want to work in, and I'll tell you I'll work for it. But don't make me do every little step separately, because that's not the way it works for me. I want to know what I'm getting myself into.
So in general,
and she never answered again. It was a scam.
Okay, so then you explained an example, you showed us an example, but in general, if you feel it's a scam, most probably it is, because there are some exceptions. Actually, what I suggest is to ask more information. And of course, it's really difficult, Ellen, for starting out translators to distinguish the thing that you mentioned, because you have a way of working already. So you know what you ask for the client. A starting out translator, they don't have a specific way of working, like to ask the right questions to the clients to figure out.
I think asking is your most important tool. Your brain to may decide what to ask and what not to ask, and then the questions you set. Because you can very quickly know if it's a real person or not, if they actually want something or not. I've had it that people, I mean, it's been a while and phones are not used that often anymore. But I used to get phone calls from total strangers. I didn't know who they were. First of all, do I see their number or not?
Exactly.
Do I know, if I look them up on the internet, if I have a name of the customer and I look it up on the internet, do they exist? And if so, where do they exist? Do they send me this message through, for example, a free email account?
A Gmail,
If it's a company account, it's more trustworthy than if it's a Gmail or in Hotmail or whatever account. Does the name actually exist on LinkedIn? Do they actually have a profile connected to that company? Because if a well-known brand sends me a message, but the person is not on LinkedIn as part of that company, as a representative, no way I'm going to accept that.
To sum up, what we look for is a professional signature with details of communication, contact details, like an email or an address, web address, or maybe their phone number, so as to know that those people, they exist. Then you can look for them online so as to configure if actually they exist. And what I've seen from other translators, and I really find it really clever, and I do when I don't see a professional email address or a web address in their signature, you can have a Google form or a survey form or a form on your website. You can actually send to those clients where they include their details: name, surname, contact details, budget for the project, details about the project and the project, maybe files themselves, so as to exclude all the other situations, so as at least to decrease the chances of working with a scammer. So that's also a way of working, like ask them beforehand their details.
One more thing about it all. We have lots of groups where we talk about these things. We have the Speaking Dolphins, we have the payment practices, we have a few others. We find that some agencies and some groups have come back and back again with the same problem. They every time don't pay. They sell your translation, they get the money, but then they're gone. They disappear. They go bankrupt. And they restart a company with a very similar name.
Yeah.
You can find this out and you can talk about it. Ask around. The Speaking Dolphin works that you ask it. You don't get answers there. You get private messages on Facebook, because you don't want to have problems with calling someone a bad payer or libel suits or anything else. You have it all hidden. Then you're totally protected. You just ask, does anyone know this specific company? And it can work for agencies, it can work for direct customers. It can work
direct
for people.
customers is more difficult because not all of us work with the same direct clients all over the world. Agencies, more or less, yes, we have some experience, all of us. But again, having the form before starting a project for a direct clients to ask them details of the project and their company details, that at least reassure you and have lower chances of working with a scammer in the end. So thank you all of you for being here live. We're almost on time, 1 hour live. Ellen, thank you so much for the advice. I've tagged you in the specific post in the group if you would like to take a look. I've answered to that person, but definitely they need more help on figuring out if it's an actual project.
I'm going to look at that because it's easier when you've got 25 years behind you than when you're just starting out. It just is.
Okay.
I wish I had a group of more help when I started out. It's just so much easier now.
You know what I get from starting out translators? I get the opposite. Like right now, there are so many resources out there that we are fed up or overwhelmed of the information. So even if when we started out, we didn't have internet or having a laptop working online, having so many resources. And nowadays, the new translators coming out from universities, graduates, they tell me like, I'm overwhelmed with information. I don't know where to look for, and I don't know if those are reliable. So they are surprised when they get a reliable, I don't know, source or a video or a training that's for free. So I think we've reached the opposite. I don't know.
I think some of the free content, and the free content here, for example, is very useful. I think it's very important to spread free content.
Yeah.
I don't do it just here. I do it in other places as well. I think that it's very, very relevant to provide good information because most people get a lot of bullshit.
Exactly.
And they are told they have to know at least 100 million things and have to study another 5 years to wade through everything. You don't want that because you have to just start. Start and you'll make mistakes. But from every single mistake, you'll be learning. And some mistakes you can avoid by listening to people, and otherwise you make them. The first time you get burnt and the company wasn't as reliable and doesn't pay you, next time you will ask more questions. And it's okay to learn. Everything is learning.
Use your brain, as you mentioned already. Use your brain. Too. Google is not the God, okay? And context is everything. If we can take 3 sentences of today with us. Thank you, Kenneth, Elena, Ileana, all of you, Dorota, that you were here with us live. Ellen, thank you so much once again. We hope to see you soon again in another live with a different topic. In the meantime, see you all of you in the Mentoring for Translators group. Bye-bye. Thank you, Ellen.
Bye-bye.